Have you ever forgiven someone who continuously betrayed you? What happens when apologies become meaningless? How do you know when to walk away instead of staying in a toxic relationship? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most powerful aspects of human relationships: betrayal and the importance of true repentance. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not just about words. It's about real change and action. So, if you've ever wondered how to handle those who continue to deceive you, this video is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn might just change the way you approach forgiveness, relationships, and even your own peace of mind. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, and comment below with your thoughts. Have you ever experienced betrayal? How did you handle it? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Betrayal number 1. Dishonesty, the root of suffering. Trust is essential in any relationship, but once broken, it not only causes us to lose trust in others, but also leaves deep emotional scars. In Buddhism, truthfulness, sakka, is one of the most valued virtues, forming the foundation of ethical living. The Buddha emphasized that false speech, musavada, is not only sinful, but the root cause of suffering. Even the smallest lie creates a ripple effect, distorting reality and leading to confusion and pain. This deceit makes it harder to perceive the truth, causing prolonged suffering. Dishonesty destroys the trust that binds relationships. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build but moments to shatter. Beyond the loss of trust, deceit creates a disconnect from reality. The Buddha taught that illusion, moha, is one of the 3 poisons that lead us into suffering. And dishonesty is a major source of this illusion. When deceived, we begin questioning our own perceptions, unsure of what to believe. This is the suffering false speech brings. It clouds judgment and causes confusion. Buddhist teachings remind us that truth is liberating. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "Truth is the path to liberation. Falsehood is the path to bondage." The more deceitful the lie, the stronger the chains that bind us to delusion and suffering. The consequences of lying. A lie is not just a false narrative, it manipulates emotions and thoughts. As the Buddha stated, words have power. They can either uplift others or bind them in confusion and sorrow. When someone lies repeatedly, they undermine trust, causing doubt and emotional harm. Over time, a deep fracture forms in the relationship. This concept aligns with karma in Buddhism, which teaches that our actions have consequences. Deceptive actions, like lying, create negative karma, leading to suffering. The Buddha taught that karma is not just a cosmic law, but a natural law of cause and effect. Every lie sows seeds of mistrust, creating ripples of negative consequences. The story of the skilled doctor. There was once a skilled doctor with a close friend who repeatedly deceived him. Out of compassion, the doctor forgave him at first, believing the apologies were genuine. However, each lie deepened the emotional pain. The doctor's compassion turned into frustration, as he realized that forgiveness alone couldn't heal the wounds caused by repeated lies. The Buddha's teachings on wisdom, prajna, come into play. True wisdom is not about endless forgiveness, but about recognizing when to walk away from toxic relationships. The doctor's realization mirrors the Buddha's teaching. Forgiveness is not about enduring harm for the sake of others. It's about knowing when to protect yourself. Compassion should never be confused with foolishness. The doctor learned that while forgiveness is vital, it is equally important to recognize the limits of your patience and avoid continual betrayal. This story highlights the Buddhist principle that self-care and self-respect are as important as compassion for others. The Buddha said, "One who continues to tolerate harm for the sake of friendship is not truly protecting their soul." Thus, the doctor learned to protect himself by no longer accepting his friend's deceit. A lesson we can all apply when facing betrayal. The Buddha's teachings encourage us to forgive in a way that doesn't compromise our well-being. Forgiving does not mean tolerating endless harm. It means releasing anger and hurt, while still maintaining healthy boundaries to avoid future suffering. An important concept here is right action, samma kammanta, which encourages ethical and wise actions. The Buddha never advised staying in harmful situations. Instead, he emphasized that we must make decisions that lead to liberation and peace. Forgiveness frees us from negative emotions, but it should never come at the cost of accepting repeated harm. In right intention, Samma Sankappa, the Buddha teaches us to examine our motivations. Are we forgiving to keep peace? Or because we truly wish to heal? Forgiveness should not come from fear or self-sacrifice, but from understanding and self-preservation. As the Buddha said, you must not only forgive others, but also protect yourself from further harm. The lesson is clear. Don't let compassion blind you to the reality of the situation. Forgiveness is important, but it does not mean allowing yourself to be deceived again. The Buddha encourages us to practice discernment and choose relationships based on honesty, trust, and respect. Sometimes, the wisest course of action is to walk away from those who repeatedly break your trust. No matter how much you care for them, the Buddha said, it is better to live one day in perfect peace than to live 100 years in a life of deceit. This reminds us that true peace comes from within, not from endlessly forgiving others or trying to change them. By setting boundaries, we not only protect our inner peace, but also ensure our compassion nurtures both ourselves and others. Betrayal number 2. Disrespect, the subtle poison. Disrespect often doesn't appear in the form of insults or violent actions, but rather through indifference and neglect, especially when others fail to understand and value your feelings. In Buddhism, right speech, Samma Vacca, is one of the most fundamental principles. For building harmonious relationships, every word should be kind and mindful. But when someone belittles or dismisses your feelings, it is not only disrespectful, but also a destructive force in any relationship. Disrespect doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It often manifests through lack of attention or failure to recognize the value of others. When someone disrespects you, they don't just hurt you emotionally. They also break down the connection and eventually destroy the relationship. The Buddha taught that words hold immense power. Words can either heal and connect or break down and create division. Disrespect appears when people fail to honor your feelings, and over time, this will damage the trust and connection in the relationship. The Buddhist story about disrespect. An ancient Buddhist story tells of a wise monk who was constantly mocked by a cruel merchant. One day, a disciple asked, "Why don't you react to his insults?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift, and you refuse it, to whom does the gift belong?" The disciple answered, "To the giver." The monk smiled and said, "Exactly. His insults belong to him, not to me." However, the key point here is that the monk did not stay in the presence of the merchant. He chose to remove himself from the situation. This story emphasizes that disrespect doesn't always need a reaction, but rather the understanding that we don't need to accept such behavior. The Buddha taught that forgiveness doesn't mean tolerating harm, but wisely protecting ourselves from relationships where disrespect is present. The lesson of the story: disrespect should never be tolerated. You do not need to accept or forgive it. Walking away is a powerful act when you realize that the relationship is no longer healthy. The Buddha taught, when others disrespect you, you don't need to respond with anger. However, you have the right to walk away to protect yourself. The lesson here is that respect is the foundation of every relationship. If you are not respected, have the courage to walk away and protect your inner peace. Respect in Buddhism. In right speech, the Buddha encourages us to speak kindly and respectfully toward others. Respect is not just about external actions, but about recognizing the value of every individual. Respecting yourself is the first step in being able to truly respect others. If you don't respect yourself, it's difficult to show true respect to others. The first step is recognizing disrespect. If you notice someone continually disrespects you, don't hesitate to walk away. The Buddha taught that we should live with mindfulness to recognize when a relationship becomes harmful. Walking away is not a sign of weakness, but an act of self-preservation. The lesson: never overlook disrespect. Act promptly to protect your peace and self-respect. Betrayal number 3. Broken trust, a wound that does not heal. Trust is the foundation of every relationship. Once it's broken, rebuilding it is often impossible. In Buddhism, right intention, Samma Sankappa, and right action, Samma Kammanta, are key to understanding trust. When someone repeatedly betrays your trust, not only does it hurt you, but it also distorts your perception of reality, making it harder to see the truth. When trust is broken, it causes a disconnect from reality, leaving emotional scars that are hard to heal. The Buddha taught that illusion, moha, is one of the three poisons. And dishonesty is a major source of this illusion. Being deceived causes us to question our judgment and lose confidence in our own perceptions. Buddhism teaches that truth is liberating. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "Truth is the path to liberation. Falsehood is the path to bondage. Lies create chains that bind us to suffering and delusion." The consequences of lying. Lying manipulates both emotions and thoughts. The Buddha said that words have power, either uplifting or binding us in confusion. Repeated lies undermine trust and create doubt, causing a deep rift in relationships. According to the concept of karma, deceptive actions lead to negative consequences. Lies sow seeds of mistrust and cause suffering not just for the deceiver, but also for the person deceived. The story of the monk and the scorpion. A Buddhist story illustrates the consequences of repeated betrayal. A monk once saved a scorpion from drowning, only for it to sting him each time. A disciple asked, "Why keep saving it if it will sting you?" The monk replied, "Because it is my nature to help. But I must also be wise. I cannot keep harming myself." This story shows the difference between compassion and foolishness. Forgiving a betrayal once may be an act of compassion, but when it repeats, it becomes a pattern of harm. The monk's wisdom lies in knowing when to protect oneself. The Buddha taught that compassion should not come at the expense of our well-being. Recognizing when to walk away is an act of wisdom, not weakness. Lesson: protect yourself. When trust is broken, it often cannot be healed. If someone repeatedly betrays you, don't allow them back into your life. Forgiveness is important, but not at the cost of accepting harm. Setting healthy boundaries and choosing when to let go is essential for maintaining peace and self-respect. In right intention, samma sankappa, the Buddha teaches us to act with wisdom and discernment. It's not about blindly forgiving, but about understanding when to step away from harmful relationships to protect your peace. Betrayal number 4. Abandonment, the cruelest form of betrayal. One of the most painful forms of betrayal is being abandoned, especially when you need someone the most. In Buddhism, relationships are based on compassion, loyalty, and understanding. When someone abandons you in your time of need, it is not an act of love but rather a cruel form of betrayal. Abandonment, the cruelest form of betrayal. Being abandoned is a deep wound, not just from the loneliness but from the feeling of being rejected and no longer important in someone else's life. The Buddha taught that loyalty and love are not just shown in words but in actions, especially during tough times. A true friend is someone who will stand by you and support you when you need them most, not someone who abandons you when things get tough. Buddhism on false friends. The Buddha once spoke about 4 types of false friends in the Pali Canon. 1. The taker only appears when they need something from you. 2. The talker speaks sweet words but never takes action. 3. The opportunist disappears when you're struggling. 4. The pretender smiles in front of you but secretly envies you. A true friend does not abandon you when times are tough. The Buddha advises us to be cautious in choosing our friends, because relationships should be based on loyalty and mutual respect. Relationships must be built on loyalty, not convenience. When someone only stays by your side when they benefit, they do not deserve you. The Buddha warns us not to continue relationships with those who only appear when they need something from us, but offer no real support in times of hardship. The Buddha said, "A true friend is someone who stays by your side, not just when life is easy, but when you need them the most." Buddhism encourages forgiveness, but that does not mean accepting betrayal or neglecting ourselves. Forgiveness is liberation, but we must also know when to walk away from harmful relationships to protect our peace. Lesson: true friendship. True friendship and loyalty are the foundation of lasting relationships. When loyalty is broken, the relationship cannot endure. Sometimes, true compassion is not about continuing to endure suffering, but about knowing when to step away from toxic relationships that cause harm. Betrayal number 5. Manipulation, a form of spiritual violence. Manipulation is one of the most dangerous forms of betrayal, because it distorts reality and makes you question your own judgment. In Buddhism, delusion, moha, is one of the three poisons that lead to suffering. Manipulation is not just about lying but about making you lose touch with the truth. Manipulation is a subtle and insidious form of betrayal. It doesn't just distort reality, it twists your perception of what is true, undermining your trust in yourself and the world around you. The Buddha teaches that illusion, moha, clouds our judgment, and leads us into suffering. Manipulation does the same. It convinces you that what is false is true, making you question your instincts and your perceptions. The Buddha often warned that attachment to delusion, whether it's false beliefs or deceitful actions, leads to suffering. When someone manipulates you, they are not only lying, but also creating a false reality that you start to believe. Over time, this can cause immense spiritual harm, because it interferes with your ability to discern the truth. There is a Buddhist story that illustrates this manipulation. A king kept a golden bird in a cage. The bird longed for freedom, but the king whispered, "You are safe here. The world outside is dangerous." The bird believed the king, staying in the cage. One day, it saw an open window and flew away. As it soared into the sky, it realized that the cage was never for protection, it was for control. This story highlights the illusion of safety created by manipulation. The bird, much like a manipulated person, was made to believe that staying in the cage, a confined, controlled environment, was for its protection. But in reality, the king's words were a ploy to control. This is how manipulation works. It distorts the truth to keep you under control. Lesson: walk away from manipulation. If someone manipulates you, walk away. The Buddha taught that delusion is one of the three poisons that leads to suffering, and manipulation is one of the most dangerous forms of delusion. It is essential to recognize manipulation for what it is: a distortion of the truth meant to control and deceive. Protect yourself by removing yourself from such toxic relationships. Do not allow someone to distort your truth. In Buddhism, right mindfulness, samma sati, and right view, samma dharsti, teach us to always see things as they are, without the distortion of falsehood or manipulation. The Buddha's teachings on freedom from delusion highlight the importance of clarity and wisdom. Right mindfulness allows us to see through the layers of deception and recognize when manipulation occurs. Compassion and wisdom are the tools we use to detach ourselves from manipulative influences. The story of the golden bird is a reminder that the cage of manipulation may seem safe, but it is only a means of control. To achieve true spiritual freedom, we must detach ourselves from false beliefs and protect our inner truth. Betrayal number 6. Greed, the poison that destroys relationships. Greed, lobha, is one of the root causes of suffering in Buddhism, and it often leads to betrayal. People motivated by greed see others only as a means to fulfill their desires. They may pretend to care, but in reality, they see you only as a resource to be used. Greed is a destructive force in both personal and societal relationships. When someone is driven by greed, they see relationships as transactions, where they use others to meet their own needs. The Buddha warned that greed leads to suffering, and this is especially true in relationships. When someone betrays you because of greed, they exploit your trust and manipulate your emotions to get what they want. They may say the right things, but their actions reveal the truth. You are merely a tool for them to get what they want. The Buddha said, "A person ruled by greed will trade even love for gold." This powerful statement highlights the destructive nature of greed, which can cause a person to sacrifice genuine relationships in exchange for material gain. The greed-driven individual may offer you their time or affection, but only as long as it serves their needs. The consequences of greed. Greed destroys relationships by fostering selfishness and exploitation. When someone betrays you out of greed, they are not concerned with mutual respect or genuine care. They are only interested in using you for their own gain. The Buddha taught that attachment to material wealth and the desire for more will never bring true happiness. In fact, greed distracts us from the path to spiritual liberation, and it causes suffering for both the greedy person and their victims. When someone betrays you out of greed, they may continue to do so as long as it benefits them. The Buddha's teachings on karma remind us that every action has consequences, and those who betray others for personal gain will eventually experience the negative results of their actions. The karma created by greed will return, often in the form of alienation, distrust, and eventual regret. Lesson: let go of greed. If someone betrays you out of greed, let them go. Relationships must be based on mutual respect and understanding, not selfish motives. The Buddha encourages us to practice detachment from greed and material desires. Greed creates false attachments, and when those attachments are broken, it causes suffering for both parties. In right intention, Samma Sankappa, the Buddha teaches that our intentions should be rooted in compassion and wisdom, not in desire or attachment. If someone uses you to fulfill their desires, they are not truly valuing you as a person. Release them, and protect yourself from further exploitation. The Buddha's teachings on contentment and renunciation show us that true happiness does not come from accumulating wealth or fulfilling desires. By practicing right action and right intention, we can free ourselves from the cycle of greed and live in a way that is aligned with wisdom and compassion. Letting go of relationships based on greed is not about anger. It is about preserving our peace and protecting our integrity. Betrayal number 7. Lack of remorse, when apologies mean nothing. In Buddhism, true repentance is not just in words, but in actions. If someone apologizes but continues their betrayal, their apology is empty. True repentance is an internal transformation, not just words said for the sake of it. Repentance in Buddhism. Actions matter more than words. Buddhism teaches that repentance is not just an apology. It must come with real action to correct the wrong. Apologies without change in behavior are just formalities, not a means of liberation from suffering. Buddhist story on forgiveness. The Buddha teaches that forgiveness does not mean tolerating repeated betrayal. When someone continually hurts you without changing their actions, forgiveness loses its value. True forgiveness can only occur when there is real change in behavior. Lesson: know when to walk away. Knowing when to walk away from a relationship is an act of self-protection. Forgiveness does not mean enduring repeated betrayal. The Buddha advises us to protect our inner peace and know when to step away from relationships that cause harm. Forgiveness in Buddhism must be wise. We must distinguish between blind forgiveness and forgiveness with awareness. If someone does not change, forgiveness only nourishes suffering. As we've explored today, true repentance is about actions, not just words. It's about understanding when to let go of relationships that harm you and when to protect your peace. Forgiving blindly can do more harm than good, and knowing when to walk away is a form of self-respect. Now, it's your turn. How will you approach forgiveness and betrayal moving forward? Share your experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Buddhist Echoes, for more wisdom on navigating life with clarity, peace, and compassion. Thanks for watching, and remember, your peace matters more than anything else.